Imagine encountering vengeful spirits, malevolent demons, and possessed objects that refuse to let go. Imagine feeling the cold grip of fear as you enter haunted houses and cursed places where the dead refuse to rest. These stories are not for the faint of heart, but for those who dare to explore the unknown and embrace the darkness within. So, if you're ready to face your deepest fears and witness the true power of terror in the night, then join us on this journey into the unknown. Brace yourselves, for the horrors we're about to reveal will shake you to the core. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to get more of our upcoming videos. I remember it all so vividly as if it were only yesterday. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. My wife, Jane, and I had been searching for a new home for months when we stumbled upon the old Victorian house on the outskirts of town. It was beautiful, with its sprawling gardens and grand entrance, but there was something ominous about it. It was as if the house was hiding a dark secret, waiting to be uncovered. We dismissed our fears and moved in anyway, eager to start our new life together. It was only when we began to hear strange noises coming from the attic that we realized our mistake. It was like something was up there that didn't want us in its domain, at first. We tried to ignore it, but the noises only grew louder and more persistent with each passing day. It wasn't long before we began to feel a presence in the house, a dark and malevolent force that seemed to be growing stronger by the minute. One night, as we lay in bed, we heard the sound of footsteps coming from the attic. But it wasn't just footsteps, it was the sound of someone dragging a heavy object across the floor. Jane and I looked at each other, terrified. What could be making that noise? We crept up to the attic, our hearts pounding in our chests. As we opened the door, a cold draft swept over us, making the hairs on the back of our necks stand up. We saw nothing but darkness, until a pair of glowing eyes appeared out of nowhere. Staring at us with an unblinking gaze, we ran out of the attic and slammed the door shut, panting with fear. But the noise didn't stop. It continued, night after night until we couldn't take it anymore. We tried to leave, but the house wouldn't let us go. Doors that had been unlocked suddenly refused to budge, and windows that had been opened suddenly slammed shut. It was as if the house was alive, and it was determined to keep us trapped inside forever. We searched the house for any clues that might explain what was happening to us, and that's when we found the old diary in the attic. The diary belonged to the original owner of the house, a man named William Grayson, who had dabbled in the dark arts and made a deal with a demon to gain wealth and power. The demon had cursed the house, and all who lived in it, with a never-ending cycle of terror and despair. But we refused to be its victims. We fought back with every ounce of strength we had, determined to break the curse and free ourselves from the demon's grip. It was a long and harrowing battle. We spent countless hours researching the occult, trying to find a way to defeat the demon. We enlisted the help of a local priest, who performed an exorcism on the house. But it was all for naught. The demon refused to leave, and it seemed as if we were destined to be trapped in the house forever. One night, as we sat in the attic, despairing of ever finding a way out, we heard a voice. It was a faint, whispering voice, coming from behind the walls. We followed the voice, tearing down the wallpaper and breaking through the plaster until we came to a hidden room. Inside the room was a small, wooden chest. It was locked, but we managed to pick the lock and open the chest. Inside, we found an ancient book, written in a language we couldn't understand. As we began to read it, we realized that it was a spell book, filled with powerful incantations and rituals that could banish demons and break curses. That we spent weeks studying the book, and finally, we found a spell that we believed could work. It was a dangerous and complicated ritual, but we were willing to do whatever it took to break the curse. We gathered all the materials we needed, and on a dark and stormy night, we performed the ritual. It was the most terrifying experience of our lives. The demon fought back with all its strength, hurling objects at us and screaming in a voice that was inhuman. But we didn't give up. We continued the ritual, chanting the incantations and performing the gestures with precision. And then, suddenly, it was over. The demon was gone, and the house was quiet. We were exhausted, but we were also elated. We had finally broken the curse, and we were free from the demon's grasp. We packed up our things and left the house, never looking back, but even though we were free, the memories of that haunted attic stayed with us. We knew that we had been lucky to survive, and we swore never to underestimate the power of the supernatural again, and so, that is the story of the haunted attic and the demon that haunted us. It is a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes, the things that scare us are very real indeed. My name is John, and I have a story to tell you. It's a story about a haunted mansion on the outskirts of Oakwood, a small town that I used to call home. Growing up, we all heard stories about the mansion, but no one ever dared to enter it. That is, until one Halloween night when I and 3 of my friends decided to explore the mansion. It was a decision that we would come to regret. As we approached the mansion, the wind howled and the trees swayed, casting eerie shadows across the lawn. The mansion stood tall and imposing, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in vines. We made our way inside, using flashlights to guide us through the dark and dusty corridors. As we explored the mansion, we started to hear strange noises, footsteps, whispers, and creaks that echoed through the halls. The atmosphere grew eerier and eerier as we descended deeper into the mansion. The walls seemed to be closing in on us, and the air grew thicker and more suffocating. It felt like we were being watched by something, and the feeling of dread that we all felt grew stronger with each passing moment. We stumbled upon a room that was completely empty, except for a single object in the center of the room, an old, dusty mirror. As we approached the mirror, we could see our reflection staring back at us, but something was off. Suddenly, the mirror began to emit an eerie, blue light, and our reflection started to move independently from us. They were mimicking our movements, but their eyes were black, and their smiles were twisted and sinister. We were frozen in fear, unable to look away from the mirror. Then, the mirrors shattered, and the room was plunged into darkness. We heard a voice whispering in our ears, taunting us and promising to never let us leave. We ran as fast as we could, trying to find our way out, but the mansion seemed to shift and change around us. The walls were moving, the floor was tilting, and the doors were disappearing. It was as if the mansion was alive, and it was toying with us like a cat playing with its prey. We could feel its malevolent presence all around us like a cold hand squeezing our hearts. Finally, we stumbled out of the mansion, our bodies shaking with fear. We collapsed on the ground, gasping for air and trying to process what had just happened. We never spoke of what happened that night, but we all knew that something evil had taken hold of us inside the mansion. To this day, I still can't shake the feeling that something is following me, watching me from the shadows. I can hear its whispers in my ears, feel its breath on my neck, and see its twisted grin in the darkness. The haunted mansion still looms over the town of Oakwood, a testament to the evil that resides within. My name is Sarah, and I have a story to tell you. It's a story about a haunted hotel that my family and I stayed in during a trip to New Orleans. The hotel was a grand old building, with high ceilings, ornate chandeliers, and antique furnishings. But there was something off about the place, something that made my skin crawl. On the first night, we heard strange noises coming from the hallway outside our room. It sounded like someone was dragging their feet along the carpet, and we could hear faint whispers in the distance. We tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the hotel's age and quirks, but things only got worse from there. We heard the same noises each night, and they grew louder and more persistent. We started to see strange shadows moving in the corners of our eyes, and we could feel a cold draft even when all the windows were shut. One night, I woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was a woman, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, with long black hair and piercing green eyes. She was staring at me, and I could feel her gaze boring into my soul. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving me shaken and terrified. I tried to convince myself that it was just a nightmare, but I knew deep down that it was real. The next day, I asked the hotel staff about the history of the building, and they told me that it was built on the site of an old plantation. The woman that I had seen was rumored to be the ghost of a former slave who had died on the property. They also told me that many guests had reported similar experiences over the years. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, that something was lurking beneath the surface. So, I did some research of my own and discovered a disturbing truth. The plantation owners had been obsessed with the idea of creating a human with the ability to communicate with the dead. They had subjected the slave to cruel and inhumane experiments, injecting her with all sorts of chemicals and exposing her to extreme temperatures. The experiments had worked, to a certain extent. The slave had developed the ability to see and communicate with the dead, but at a great cost. Her mind had been shattered, and she had become a vessel for all sorts of malevolent spirits. When the plantation owners realized what they had created, they tried to dispose of the slave by burying her alive. But her powers were too strong, and she refused to die. Instead, she lingered on the property. Her spirit bound to the hotel that now stood in its place. I never forgot the haunted hotel in New Orleans, and I never returned to it. But I often wonder if the ghostly woman is still there, waiting for her next victim to cross her path. And I wonder if the evil that the plantation owners unleashed upon the world is still lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed once more.